Best Friends family this evening. And anyone have any additions to the agenda? Seeing no one, seeking approval of the agenda, moved by Councillor Pierce, or seconded by Member Howes. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Anyone with a pecuniary interest, please do so. We have no delegations or petitions or presentations listed this evening, so I'll proceed to the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. Moved by Member LaFerriere, seconded by Member Bailey. Anyone have any questions on those minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? They're carried. Anyone have any business arising from those minutes? Seeing no one, we'll move on then to public hearings under the Planning Act to receive information from the public. And the first application is ZBA 38/19/RC, and I'll ask our planner, Ryan Cummings, to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject lands are located on the north side of Harley Road, east of West Quarter Town Line Road, in the former township of Burford. The subject lands are approximately 0.46 hectares in size, or 1.14 acres, and are surrounded by agricultural uses to the north, east, south, and west. The subject lands are designated agriculture in the county's official plan. The applicant is proposing to amend the current zoning on the subject lands from general commercial C2 to agricultural A to allow for the construction of a single detached dwelling. Staff is recommending that this be received for information purposes this evening. That concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member of the committee with a question of our planner? Member Miller?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Ryan. How does the province look at that? I know, do they look at as taking away, say, employment lands or anything like that? Like, would they take a dim view of it? That's what I'm wondering.
Through you, Mr. Chair, specifically looking at this site, this wouldn't be considered employment lands in terms of the provincial regulations. It is designated agriculture under the official plan, and it's zoned for commercial purposes. Funny enough, just by reviewing the property file going back to the township days, there was really no indication of how this zoning came to be, but since it is not in conformity with the OP, at the applicant's request, we are down zoning it to conform with our official plan and applicable provincial policies.
Thank you.
Any other member of committee with a question of our planner? Seeing no one? Thank you. Is the applicant or representative of the applicant here would like to present? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Yeah, my name's Dustin Jenner, Nathan's brother.
Please come forward.
I see. In the hot seat. Yeah, my name is Dustin Jenner. I'm Nathan Jenner's brother, just representing him at this time. What was the question?
No, you can make a presentation about the application.
Okay.
If you choose not to.
Well, he bought the property. Okay, so Nathan bought the property, I'm gonna say 4 years ago, and it was zoned commercial at the time, still is obviously, but there was like, the guy had like a makeshift tire shop there. It was never really a business by any means, but he just wants to build a house on it. There's a current house on it now, so I think he would have to get approval from you guys, build the house, tear the old house down, and the old house is like, barely even standing. It's just a demo. So it's just one of those things that I think that, we have to go through the process, and this is the process. So hopefully it goes smoothly. Is that it?
Thank you. Yeah,
All right,
just
thanks
hold it, just stay there. Any member of committee with a question of the applicant? Member Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I think actually to the planner and perhaps to the applicant, if there's a house already there, I need to understand why we need to rezone it in order to build a house. If we couldn't just knock the old house down and put a new house there, do we change anything fundamentally?
I could probably answer that on the process of, like, I know if you have a mortgage on a property, that is the leverage that the bank holds upon the property value. So if you buy a piece of land, there's nothing, you don't have any actual asset to the property itself. So if you tear the house down, you're technically, the bank doesn't have any collateral against you, even if the house is a decrepit piece of crap, so, which it is. But at the end of the day, it is something that they have, so that's why we're here. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't have to come here. You just build it and, well, actually, no, because you needed zone C2, right? So you can't really actually build anything. So, yeah, here we are, back to square one.
Thank you for that
Oh.
background, but I'm not sure I got my answer. Maybe the planners could help me.
Member McAlpine?
This might be more of a question for the planner, but wouldn't estate residential be more appropriate for this rather than agriculture? Is that something for further?
I'm very reluctant to call the planner back up. The planner was here, and you had that opportunity to ask that question, chose not to. The applicant is here right now, and this is his time. So if you have a question of the applicant, direct it to the applicant. Proceed.
I don't know if the applicant can answer that. Would, to change it to estate residential, wouldn't that be more appropriate than agriculture because of the size of the property? Because it's only 1.25 acres.
But why?
Well, in general, I think that just for the I'll just drop it.
I will try and answer it for him. That's what they've chose to do.
Right.
It's not up to us to tell them what to do. This is the route that they've chosen to proceed, and we'll deal with that application as it is. If that application fails, perhaps they will choose another route, but this is what's before us at the present time. Member Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to the applicant. Would Nathan be operating his business out of this location then?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Like, I know he'll be, like, there's a garage on the property, but he has like a lot of like hobby cars and stuff like that, so I don't know if that, but I imagine if he pulls his, he's self-employed, so if he pulls his truck and trailer in there, I don't know, like if that, he has got other lots and stuff like that he works out of as well. I don't really know what it has, what he actually does for his daily business.
Okay, no, I know about the business, and I just wonder if he'd be operating out of there. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other member of committee with a question of the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, guys.
Is there any member of the public would like to speak to this application? I'll ask a second time, is there any member of the public would like to speak to this application? I'll ask a third and final time, is there any member of the public would like to speak to this application? Seeing no one, I'll turn it back to committee. How's committee wish to proceed? Member Howes?
Move to receive as information.
Seeking a seconder, seconded by Member Bailey. Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, I'll call the vote to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried. This application will come forward to this committee at a further date for either rejection or approval, sir, and you will be contacted. Moving on to B, application ZBA 39-19-RC. The applicant is Peter Rowe, 74 Simcoe Street, and I'll ask our planner to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject lands are located on the east side of Simcoe Street, north of Whitney Street in Scotland. The subject lands are approximately 0.1 hectares or 1.5 acres in size and are surrounded primarily by residential uses to the south, east, and west. To the north of the subject lands is the Scotland Baptist Church Cemetery. The subject lands are located in the secondary urban settlement area of Scotland and are designated suburban residential in the county's official plan. The applicant is proposing to amend the current zoning on the subject lands from open space 1 to special exception suburban residential to allow for a future severance of the existing dwelling, or manse, on the eastern portion of the property. The applicant is also proposing site-specific zoning provisions on the retained lands to allow a technology development and computer business as a home occupation. Staff is recommending that this be received for information purposes tonight, and that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Member of committee with questions for our planner, Member Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Ryan. Where would the access to the road be? Would it be on Queen Street, or is that a premature question at this time?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the intent is for access to be provided through Queen Street. Our Development Engineering Services have attended or are attending the site currently and are working on assessing an appropriate access off of Queen Street to that existing dwelling. Typically, it's not favorable to create a mutual access off of a road with an easement, so we'd like to try and accommodate an entrance there on Queen Street. You'd note that there's an original road allowance actually at the rear of the property off of Queen Street that extended to the cemetery. That was dedicated through sale by the county to the applicant, so they have acquired that, and that is a single parcel now. So there is adequate frontage there to accommodate an entrance. The topography is a little difficult to work with, and there is some trees there, but we're working with the applicant to find an appropriate entrance. I think we'll have to have an engineered plan prior to making a decision in that regard, but we're working on that right now.
Member Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ryan. Can you be clear about which parcel of land we're talking about there? Could you show me on this drawing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, are we speaking about the original road allowance there?
No, I'm interested in...
Which parcel?
Which parcel, yeah.
Well, actually, and I apologize, this is from our GIS system here that has the proposed lots located on it, but right now it is one entire lot extending to the rear past Queen Street and here to Simcoe Street. So that is one lot right now. The red line represents approximately the severance line, and so there is an inaccuracy right now in our GIS system.
Through you, Mr. Chair. On page 33, the drawing there indicates it's just the left-hand part of that package you just described is the lands that are the subject lands. So, could you again tell me what the zoning is currently on both of these two parts?
So I think this might show it a little bit more clearly. The open space OS1 and SR zones apply to the subject lands, which are entirely outlined in the red.
So they're OS1 at the moment.
My apologies.
I can't see. I'm sorry, I can't see.
My apologies. A portion of the subject lands are zoned OS1 here,
Yeah.
and then SR is suburban residential at the rear.
So then please again explain what it is that the applicant wants to do.
The applicant is proposing to sever the rear portion of the lot, which contains the manse, and which was the original manse for the church, which would be noted on this plan as approximately halfway from the rear of the property, and with an entrance to be located off of Queen Street. And they would like to rezone both portions of the subject lands for site-specific purposes to meet a minimum lot frontage of approximately 17.68 meters for the parcel to be created off of Queen Street. And that would be a site-specific zoning provision on that portion which contains the manse. And then a site-specific SR zone on the retained parcel which contains the church, to allow for a technology business as a home occupation and for an undersized lot of 2,899.9 square meters, whereas 3,000 is required. And so there'll be a split zoning, essentially, on the subject lands until such time that they're severed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other member of committee with a question of our planner? Seeing no one, thank you. Is the applicant or representative of the applicant here would like to speak, make a presentation, please come forward, sir. State your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ryan. My name is Peter Kimrow, and I use Kim all the time, so please call me Kim. I have a technology business. It's involved in developing small electronics devices, primarily for medical purposes. We do things like, we built something called eSight's intelligent eyewear that helps blind people see, for example. We just finished a Holter monitor, if anybody knows what that is. And so that's the sort of things that we're going to put, the business does. And we're also working with people at Burford Saddle Club to do an equestrian helmet. So that's kind of the business. This severance is really just for single-family residential purposes. And really, the church needs to be separate from the house so that, and everything is going to be separate, like all the utilities, everything like that. There's complete severance planned, and so that, that these two entities can stand independently in the future. Any questions?
Any member of committee with a question? Member Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Kim. Maybe it was said, I don't know. Are you planning to run the business out of the church or the manse?
Out of the church.
Okay, and you'll be living there as well?
I will renovate the church and live there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other member of committee with a question of the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on this application? I'll ask a second time, is there any member of the public who would like to comment on this application? I'll ask a third and final time, is there any member of the public who would like to comment on this application? Seeing no one, I'll turn it back to committee. How does committee wish to deal with this application? Member Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to receive.
Seeking a second, Member LaFerriere seconds. Any other questions or comments from committee? Seeing none, I'll call the vote to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. This application will come back to this committee at a further date with a recommendation from staff to either approve or reject. Thank you. That concludes public hearings under the Planning Act to receive information. We'll move on to public hearings of the Planning Act to reconsider staff recommendations, and the first one is A, ZBA 24-19-RC. The applicant is John Corner, 4 Middleport Road in Onondaga. And our planner can proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject lands are located on the northeast corner of Middleport Road and Hager Street, north of Highway number 54 in the former township of Onondaga. Subject lands have a frontage of approximately 793 meters on Middleport Road and an area of approximately 17.9 hectares or 44.3 acres. Primary uses in the immediate area are agricultural to the north, east, and west, and residential to the south. The subject lands are designated as agriculture in the official plan. The applicant had originally submitted this application to amend the zoning on the subject land from agricultural A to agricultural employment special exception AE to allow for a contractor's yard as a permitted use, as well as to recognize existing deficient street and interior side yard setbacks. The applicant has formally withdrawn their request to rezone the subject lands to agricultural employment, noting that the business has been moved off of the subject lands. Through review of the latest as-constructed survey drawings, it became apparent that the building had been constructed to a deficient street setback of 15 meters. This setback is inconsistent with the building permit that was originally issued for a 20-meter street setback. Therefore, the applicant is now requesting to rezone a portion of the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural special exception in order to recognize this deficient setback. Staff is recommending that the application be approved with a required landscape strip being included in the site-specific zoning as attached to this report. Staff will also be requesting a letter of undertaking from the applicant to ensure the landscape strip is installed, and will be requesting this to be submitted prior to the final bylaw going to council if this application is approved. This concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Any member of committee with a question of our planner? Member Miller?
Just, in your recommendation, you say it should be approved, right? And then you said that the reasons for refusals are as follows. I'm kind of confused.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'd have to apologize for that. I've revised this report 4 times now, and I think that was an oversight on my part, so I'd apologize. We are recommending approval, as it reads on the paragraph of recommendation on the front page of the report.
So that should read like that the reasons for approval are as follows?
That's right.
Okay. Neat.
Any other member of the committee with a question of our planner? Member Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to our planner. The grading, has there been a grading plan submitted for the property?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Staff has not required a site plan control application for this due to the fact that they've withdrawn the request for the agricultural employment, the contractor's yard. And so therefore, the applicant is required to meet the requirements of the building permit should this application be approved. And that being said, a normal requirement would be for our building staff, when they close the permit file, to verify the grading on site. But we don't require a grading plan to be submitted as we would normally through a site plan controlled application, which would include more detailed civil design, including stormwater management and grading plans. At this time, the applicant is proposing to use this building for an agricultural implement shed, and unfortunately, we do not have the type of controls that we normally would for a site plan control application, as we had originally anticipated for the contractor's yard.
I realize what it's being used for and that, you know, how the changes have been made to the application. But there was a complaint about water coming from the property because of the additional roof in close proximity to the street and running to the neighbors. And our lot grading technician, in her correspondence, I think, recommended that we should have a plan, and that's why I've asked that question. So through building department, you're saying they will check grading. So what grading though? Is there a plan that they can check the grading with to make sure they're not impacting the neighbors?
Through you, Mr. Chair, several points there I think I'll touch on. So the comments from our lot grading technologist had spoken to requesting a lot grading plan in the instance of a site plan control. And that was the original premise of the application. And it was known that a site plan application would be required should the building be rezoned, or the subject land be rezoned for agricultural employment for a contractor's yard. Our site plan control bylaw does not allow us to impose site plan control on agricultural implement sheds. And so we're treating this, rightly so, as any other building permit for an agricultural building. And therefore, we can't request those types of engineered plans. And so I think that might have been lost in the commenting period internally. But that comment, unfortunately, we can't require a grading plan. Secondly, though, with the review of the building permit, our building inspectors do review lot grading on the site as it pertains to the minimum requirements under the building code. And I can't speak to that under my general expertise as a planner, but we do not require the types of engineered plans that we would under a site plan control application for a building permit. And that's what we're dealing with at this time.
Okay.
Member LaFerriere?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to our planner. There's some discussion about some portions of this that were built in the past without permits, et cetera. And so this is why I asked this question. There's some correspondence here from November 27th from the applicant, I believe, saying that they will complete a relocation of portions of what they were doing to the Caledonia. Let's see here. Middleport Mechanical has secured a previous location at 1110 Highway 54, West Caledonia. We'll be moving our operations from 4 Middleport Road, Caledonia, starting December 1st, 2019, and will complete this relocation no later than January 1st, 2020. Do we have any evidence that that's occurred?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our building staff, in checking in on their orders that they have through the building permit, did attend the site last week. in speaking with the building inspector, he's satisfied that the business operation has been removed from this site. And we have a couple photos here just to illustrate what the state of the building is. And I believe in your package you have photos that you could probably compare them to. And I apologize, these aren't in the package, but these only came in late last week. But this would be the office area, and that would be the front door. And this is the upper area. Mr. Van Porten and the applicant also could speak to this in a bit more detail as to what we're looking at, but this is what was provided to us by our building inspectors. And then this is the main shop area.
Yeah, we have some pictures, but not those ones. Thank you.
Member Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ryan. Following up on Councillor Gatwood's question, what recourse do neighbours have if there is a drainage issue that causes water to flow into their properties? How do they go about solving that problem?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we would accept any inquiries from the neighbors, and we would send our building inspectors out, and also a lot grading technician if it was warranted it's not dissimilar to any neighbor dispute for drainage type issues. We would certainly follow up on it. I do think it's unfortunate that we don't have the opportunity to require the grading plan to be submitted. However, we would certainly act on any concerns or inquiries from neighbors with a specific question or problem.
But I think we already have in our package of information a statement from one of the neighbours that there is a problem. So I think it seems appropriate that we recognise that, and as we decide on this matter, we ought to put in place appropriate measures to make sure that the neighbours are satisfied.
Any other member of committee with a question of our planner? Seeing none, thank you. I'll ask the applicant or representative of the applicant to come forward and present. State your name and address when you arrive at the podium, sir.
Rob Van Porten, J.H. Cahoon Engineering. And I guess before I forget, Councillor Gatward, we did actually submit a grading plan. The grading plan has been submitted. I don't believe it's been reviewed or commented on, but a grading plan was submitted. We shot the property back in August, I believe, so a grading plan would have been submitted shortly thereafter. Mr. Chair, this application obviously has a long history. We initially applied to have the property zoned to agriculture employment to recognize a business that was established in this building, a recently constructed building. Upon hearing concerns of council members and neighbors, that application, or the rezoning component of that application, was withdrawn. However, through our investigation and staff's investigation of the overall development, it was found, as the planner noted, it was found that in fact the building was too close to the property line. The county has suggested that it should be 20 meters, and the building is in fact 15 meters from the front property line. I don't know how this happened. I'm surmising that because there were no property stakes along the front property line, the building was in fact established with 20 meters to the road limit as opposed to front lot line. We did ultimately get a survey done, confirm that in fact the building is 20 meters from the pavement, sorry, the gravel portion of the road, and 15 meters from the property line. And therefore, this application seeks to only amend the application or amend the zoning as it applies to setback for this particular building. And the zoning bylaw that is attached to the staff report, in fact, only rezones the portion on this little corner of the property. It does not impact or allow a reduced setback for any other building along the 700 and some odd meters of street frontage. Mr. Chair, in my opinion, the variation from the staff permitted 20 meters to 15 meters is minor in nature, recognizes an existing building, does not impact the overall streetscape, because in fact there is nobody living on this portion of Middleport Road other than the applicant. The only other residents are to the south in the village of Middleport. As I mentioned, a grading plan has been completed, not commented on, but has been completed, and we are in agreement to providing some additional landscaping along the interface between the existing building and the residential properties to the south. And as noted by the planner, that should be guaranteed by a letter of undertaking, which we are quite prepared to sign. Mr. Chair, I can respond to questions.
Any member of committee with a question? Member Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the applicant. Thank you for letting us know we have a grading plan. Does that grading plan then, if it's approved, does it demonstrate that water will not flow from this site into the neighbour's yard?
We prepared the grading plan on the assumption that the business, if it were zoned, if it were rezoned, would be subject to site plan control, and therefore that is the reason why we prepared the grading plan. And yes, in opinion of the engineering, or the engineer that prepared the plan, yes, it does protect the neighbors. As I mentioned, it has been submitted, not yet reviewed or commented on by the county. And obviously, if modifications are required to ensure that the residents are protected, those modifications would have to be made. And we're quite prepared to do that.
Any other member of committee with a question? Member Miller?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just want to point out to Rob, in our report, it says a condition of the application is you got to provide a grading plan. But it says in stormwater management report, I assume the stormwater
That's
management
part of
report,
the grading, yes.
okay. And then it's got to be the county Brant development standards, so, okay. That's in there, so.
Any other member of committee with a question? Seeing no one? Thank you. I may call you back up depending on what happens from the public.
Thank you, Mr.
Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment on this application? I'll ask a second time. Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment on this application? I'll ask a third and final time. Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment on this application? Seeing no one, I'll turn this application back to committee. How does committee wish to deal with it? Member Miller,
Mr. Chair, I'll move it for approval.
seeking a seconder, seconded by Member McAlpine. Any questions or comments from committee? Member Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Taking Councillor Miller's point about the condition that would be applied to this application, I note that the bylaw does not have that condition in it.
That's what he said.
Noted by Member Bell. Any other comment or question from committee? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. It's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? Count. Carried. It is carried. This application will go forward to council for council approval 2 weeks from this evening. Moving on to consent items. There are no consent items to be approved. There is one consent item to be received. How does committee wish to deal with it? Member Pierce? Moving to receive, seeking a seconder, seconded by Member Bailey. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor to receive? Moving on to committee reports, there are none listed. We have a staff report that's going to be presented, but before it's presented, our director would like to comment first. Ms. Dewsney.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to apologize to PAC. On December 17th, you asked me a question about the Bill 73 PAC and its establishment and how it was organized, and I did not answer well. So as a result of that, I have learned that indeed our Bill 73 PAC is the Agriculture Advisory Committee only. They deal with primarily policy-related matters. They do deal with some development applications at the request of council or if staff choose to bring that forward to them. I can assure you that the application regarding 7 Harris Road with the MDS. We'll be going forward to the next Bill 73 PAC, or the Ag Advisory Committee, on January 20th, and it will be brought back forward to you as Council PAC back in March. So I did want to give you that assurance and apologize, and as a result, Mr. Trotter has prepared a report to give you the history and the details of the Bill 73 PAC, so I will now turn the floor over to him.
Thank
Mr.
you very
Trotter.
much. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Pam.
I
the,
would
let's get rid of this.
interrupt you first, Mr. Trotter. Being as it's listed as a recommendation, I'd like to get the recommendation moved and seconded before we discuss it. Moved by Member LaFerriere, seconded by Member House. Now move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize too. This is a very awkwardly worded report because of the Bill 73 PAC and this PAC that we are assembled as this evening. And that's obviously one of my first recommendations, is that this committee should be renamed to the Planning and Development Committee, so that we don't run into this situation where we've got two planning advisory committees. One of them, we don't really have a choice in the matter because it's legislated by the province. That would be the one that we currently have as our Agricultural Advisory Committee. So that PAC would remain as the Planning Advisory Committee. This committee that we're in tonight should be renamed to the Planning and Development Committee. That will avoid the hassle that we're running into with two names. So, but for the purposes of the report, because that hasn't been done yet, I had to refer to this committee as the Council PAC and as the Agricultural Advisory Committee in their, when they take on the position of Planning Advisory Committee, as the Bill 73 PAC, because that was the outcome of Bill 73. So I hope I've muddied those waters, just like at the Grand River, and we can move on from there. So this report obviously was as a result of some of the questions pertaining to the role of the Agricultural Advisory Committee as the Bill 73 PAC. So hopefully, I'm not going to delve into the details of the report because I'm assuming that council or a committee has read it, but I am prepared to answer any questions, and I did attach the report from 2017 that Mr. Hassan did in his role as the senior policy planner here, which outlined what the role of that Planning Advisory Committee as the Agricultural Advisory Committee would be doing. So with that, I do have a recommendation in front of you. I believe it's I'm suggesting recommending adopting option 6, which is to rename this council PAC. And to do nothing at this time with respect to the Bill 73 PAC, or the Agricultural Advisory Committee, until such time as we approach the province and talk to them about getting some further direction and role for that Bill 73 PAC. Because at this time, as it's mentioned in my report, there's nothing. There's no legislative role, there's no legislative duties, we just have to have one. And I don't think that works well for any of us, especially given the shortened timelines through Bill 108, where we have to do a zoning bylaw in 90 days. Almost anything that goes to that committee, you're going to be extending that time frame to beyond the 90-day period. And so I think we need to approach the province and get some assistance from them on that. I think, quite frankly, that it was a bit of a dangler that the province either just left hanging when the new provincial government came into effect. Hopefully they're going to do something about that, but until then, we have a Bill 73 PAC that we are required to have. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Member Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. For my education, Rob, why did we not go the simple route and just add a non-council member to this group, and then we resolve the whole issue as far as I'm concerned?
That was an option for council at the time. Council could have done that back in 2017. I think one of the drawbacks to doing that is that you have a person around the horseshoe who is not an elected official, who would be making recommendations to council with no, how can I phrase this, no elected authority given to them to do that. And so they would be very, very prone to receiving phone calls as you do, but with it would be a very awkward position for that person, especially in the event of a tie vote.
But surely the province wanted that kind of input to the decision-making that this current Planning Advisory Committee provides. I mean, and if we would, I presume, have selected somebody with the right skills and background to fill the requirements. If I look around this group of people, there are business people here, there are people with transport industry experience, there are farmers, there are people that work in other industries, there are people who are teachers. I mean, we seem to have a whole skill range here, so adding one more body to this group, which is the simple solution in my mind. If we find the right skills that we are missing, I think it is a very sensible and logical solution.
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Chairman, I've given a number of options there. I think I haven't added the option of adding a person to this committee, but that is another option for this.
I call it option 7, Rob.
Yeah, option 7. Fair enough. Yeah.
Member Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I think it's safe to say, or fair to say, that we're not the only municipality that's in this situation? Like, is this something that, like, I'm just wondering, we would talk about talking to the province to get some sort of direction. Are we able to, you know, team up with some other municipalities to bring a bigger hammer, so to speak?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that's very, very likely possible because I do know other municipalities have used committees like the Agricultural Advisory Committee to act as their Bill 73 PAC.
Thank you.
Member Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was very pleased to see this report, Mr. Trotter, and the clarity of who's doing what as far as the Agriculture Advisory Committee. My question is, do they know about this and have their responsibilities increased compared to what they're doing now?
They would know about their role based on the report from 2017. So that's the report that they would be aware of.
So it hasn't increased?
It hasn't increased from that point in time, no.
So they know, and there's really not much of a change other than our name is being suggested to change. And I think that we are a rural municipality. We have almost double citizens in our rural areas than we do in the urban area of Paris. Now that could change in the next few years. However, the largest industry in the county of Brant is agriculture. So I think that this committee is very valuable to look at these applications and send advice to our committee. I also think, we do have 2 farmers on our committee. However, it would be good if they could meet so that the applications aren't delayed for their meeting. If they're only meeting every other month or every quarter, I don't know how often they meet. But those are my comments.
Member Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'll add on from what some of the members have said, but through you to Rob, it's a bit of a head scratcher that the Bill 73 PAC has no legislative duties, no defined roles, and no rules or regulations. So I do support your option of just let's see what the deuce the province has to say. But I want to go back to what Pam mentioned. She mentioned, I think, 3 West Harris Road, and I made a recommendation that we refer it to the Ag Advisory Committee, which, to Councillor Gottridge's point, meets every 3 months, and that's if we can get quorum. We usually do. But When I suggested, well, we could, the next meeting is January 20th, we could bring that West Harris application to the February pack. The county solicitor, Jody, said we'd already be past the deadline. And in Rob, in your report, you pointed out, we're going to go over these deadlines if we go some of these other options. What is the deadline from when an application comes in to when we have to make a decision? And I don't mean at planning, I mean at a final decision at council. So maybe we meet the deadline, say at planning, but it still has to go to our council. So what's that deadline? I thought it was 90 days, but.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it depends on the application. Under the zone changes are now 90 days, it used to be 120.
Zone change?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the shortest. And plans of subdivision and OPAs are now down to 120 from 210. So it's not a lot of time.
All right, so, yeah, like I said, I appreciate the fact that we cannot, every other option almost seems like it's gonna add time, so we don't have too many options. Okay, thank you.
If I might assist a little bit here, I look back to the application on West River Road where there was the canoe launch. That was 10 months before it came back here in the decision. And I didn't hear any complaints that we didn't meet a timeline. And that was the people that wanted to launch the canoes into the Grand River off of West River Road. So that 3-month timeline was well exceeded by, and that took almost a year. It was 10 months before it came back. Any other questions? Member Bell?
Sorry, I just have a question. I want to propose an amendment. Do that, is it right?
No further questions? Well, then proceed with your amendment.
Yeah, I would like to propose that we accept option 7, which is to go the simple route and add a non-council member to this Planning Advisory Committee. And I'd like to speak to it if I get a seconder.
Is there a seconder? I do not see a seconder, so your motion has failed. So we'll go back to the original recommendation that you have before you, and I'm going to call the vote. It's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. And of course, it'll go forward to council 2 weeks from this evening for final approval at council. We'll move forward to B, and that is a review of our tower situation. And before I ask Ryan to come up, there's a recommendation here, so I'd like it moved and seconded before there's questions or comments. Member Pierce. Member Bailey seconds. Ryan is arriving at the podium and will be prepared to field questions momentarily. Member Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, hold it. Ryan's not there yet. Sorry.
The 3 times the height recommendation, so it's 120 meters plus, oh, sorry, no, or 3 times the height of the proposed tower. So if a tower is 100 meters high, I'm not sure how high they are. I think they vary. So it would be 360 meters radius around the tower for notification. And right now we're doing 100? 120?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe, Member Gatward, you're referring to the setback to sensitive land uses, and that's what I have up here on the overhead. So there's 3 key areas that we kind of looked at in the protocol here, and there's sort of the themes that we were hearing in recent applications that we dealt with. They're set out in the report attached and also in the recommendation. The 3 key areas, again, are the setbacks to sensitive land uses, and those being residential, natural heritage, or institutional type uses. Currently under the protocol, the wording is a little ambiguous, and so of course we went through the protocol and updated the wording, and that's attached in the revised protocol draft. Currently, we request a minimum setback of 120 meters. Our recommendation is to implement a minimum setback of the greater of the current 120 meters or 3 times the height of the tower. In recent applications we've seen, average tower height is approximately 60 meters in some cases. Some cases are shorter or taller, but that's what we saw in the last 2 that we dealt with that were of particular concern to this committee. So that would provide additional separation from potentially sensitive land uses, for example, in that instance, to a minimum setback of 180 meters. And that would set the floor minimum of 120 meter setback, which would, in context, if you were looking at a 40-meter high tower, that would be the minimum, would be 3 times that height at 120 meters. And then that would go up incrementally higher at 3 times the proposed tower height in accordance with this protocol. And that's the one aspect. But Councillor Gatward, I think you alluded to the circulation radius, which currently is 120 meters or 3 times the tower height. And 3 times the tower height. And we're recommending to increase that based on some of the feedback we've heard in recent applications to 500 meters from the property lines of any proposed tower. That's the maximum we've really seen in reviewing the literature of other municipal protocols. And that's the only example we find is in Blandford-Blenheim Township. But based on what we've heard from this committee in recent dealings with tower protocol questions, we felt it to be most appropriate to provide for that greater circulation radius.
So, as an example then, where we have strip development along a road, if the lots are very deep, say 10 acres, and you can get a tower behind those lots 1,000 feet away, it would be permitted according to this. Correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, could you clarify that example, possibly?
If you have strip development, this is set back to residential, natural heritage, and other sensitive land uses. And you're recommending a greater of 120 meters or 3 times the tower height, right?
That's correct.
For setback. So if we had strip development and they were big lots, like 10 acres deep, and 3 times the tower height could be 500 feet or 600 feet. And if that property is 1,000 feet deep, it could still be placed there, correct? Because I'm referring to the one in Mount Pleasant that everybody was up in arms about. And those lots are very deep. But there was residents all along Mount Pleasant Road.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's important to note that there are instances of residential developments or lots or dwellings in the county that aren't necessarily zoned or designated for residential use. And that would be part of the instance in Mount Pleasant. And so what we tried to do is clarify the definition, and I'd refer you to page 2 in the revised protocol with the track changes enabled. And number 1 are the definitions, and this was a point of concern to the committee, I believe, in a previous application, was the definition of a neighborhood use, which we have revised to be defined as a residential neighborhood. Previously, our protocol had defined them as any lands designated and zoned for residential land uses. And that was a point of contention on one specific application we dealt with previously. Under the new proposed protocol, we've updated this to include any existing residential dwellings on lands not zoned or designated for residential land uses. So there's a variety of circumstances that would guide us as to our response to a proposal for a tower based on the zoning, the designation, and the existence of an existing dwelling in a legal nonconforming scenario. That being stated, if we had an instance of a property like in Mount Pleasant, which wasn't necessarily zoned or designated residential, suburban residential, for example, we would take the minimum setback as from the dwelling itself being the residential use, noting that a significant portion, probably in the instance of your example, at the rear of the property is not a residential use. It would, for example, maybe be designated in zone agriculture or for other purposes.
So if it meets the protocol that we approve tonight, the recommendation will be that we have no objections if the company erecting the tower has conducted appropriate consultation.
That's correct, and I think it's our intent here to clarify these types of items that we've been concerned with, or hearing concerns with in the last probably 4 to 6 months. We'd like to just get some clarification as to what this committee expects from these applications and what type of things we'd like to see revised. Specifically, there are quite a number of revisions made to the protocol. You can see in the track changes, but we're open to any suggestions that you'd like. We just did our best based on the feedback that we were getting from the most recent applications.
And while the signs aren't legislated, we have every right to tell them we want a 2 by 3 foot sign.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. That's our intent in defining that within the protocol now, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Member LaFerrier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just a quick question. How did staff land on the option 2 instead of, say, 6 times tower height?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the intent here was to not vary too far from our existing protocol in instances where it isn't deemed necessary. There is guidelines that are provided by ISED Industry Canada for the establishment of municipal protocols, and they specifically state that municipalities cannot create protocols that are deemed to be too onerous or unnecessary or inappropriate, and the policies that are in that protocol. Obviously, it's a little ambiguous or it's left open to interpretation, but in our view, this would meet the intent of providing adequate separation, and it's also based on scale. So that was our justification for that.
Member Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the questions are done, a comment if I could?
Sure.
Okay. I would like to say thank you to staff for doing this. There's a couple things that we, the main things we asked for out of this is to make it farther away from residential, which we've done, and to increase the radius for communication. So they've done both of that in here, along with, as you stated, several other changes in there. I like it. I'm prepared to move it in.
Member Miller?
And if Councillor Pierre doesn't mind if I piggyback on that, because we hear that every single application that comes forward on one of these was, I never got notice. So thank you again to staff for listening. I think that's great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we'll go to council 2 weeks from this evening for final approval. Moving on to C. Recommendation before us. How does the committee wish to deal with it? Moved by Member Pierce, second by Member LaFerriere. Then I'll call Greg and Ryan up to field any potential questions. Anyone have any questions of Ryan or Greg? Member House?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, specific to the subject of cannabis and particularly Greg's side of it, we've received close to $100,000 in funding so far based on our decision to opt into allowing cannabis retail into our community. And I'm just wondering about how the spending side of it has been going so far in terms of costs, extra costs related to cannabis from your department.
I think some of the costs have been attributed to some of these policies that we've been developing, also through some zoning amendments. So there's been a lot of staff time that's been dedicated to try and I guess align ourselves in a position where we're moving forward progressively with the county and our initiatives. I don't have any specifics as to, where that money has gone exactly, but it's been dedicated to staff time.
Member Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the process for an application, the proposed door owner puts the notice in the window, and we have 15 days to comment. It's unfortunate that the government chose not to notify municipalities, and that you're going to have to visit their website twice a day to try and keep track of who's applied and who hasn't. However, when we do get applications in the county and you find them and the sign is up, 15 days isn't very long, is it possible for staff to send a quick email to the ward councillors whose ward this application is in, so that we're aware of it? Because, like, my ward stretches from Caledonia to Scotland, and I'm not every place all the time, and I wouldn't know whether somebody in Middleport or wherever put a sign in their window unless I drive around looking for them, and I'm not going to do that. So if staff is going to monitor the website, then I would request that the ward councillors be notified so that they're aware, because Joe Blow up the street might say, "Why didn't you let me know?" And, I'm going to have to say, "Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know." And that makes us look bad, in my opinion. So I would hope that we could do that somehow, just simple. And then maybe at our monthly planning and development meetings, we could have a list of the whole batch of applications from the whole county. Thank you.
Member Bell?
Chair, through you to Greg and Ryan. 150 metres keeps coming back in your proposed policy. Is that dictated by the province, or is that a number that we've chosen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's the number that we've chosen, which is in alignment with the provincial regulations. The only stipulation in the regulations of the Cannabis License Act with respect to restrictions of a cannabis retail store applies to schools, and it's in the 150 meters. So the language in the policy actually reflects the language in the regulations.
So there's no ability on our part to make it 500 meters?
We can certainly make it whatever we want, and it's just a comment that we would provide. But we're just a commenting agency, and that it would be up to the AGCO to weigh those comments and make an appropriate decision.
Member Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was actually asked by Councillor Gatward there. I was wondering about the staff member having to continually look to see where they're on there. I appreciate what Councillor Gatward said after that too, about letting the ward councillor know, but I'd like to go above that, and if you could just fire one out to all councillors if we do fire one, I think that's probably the best way to go about that, but my answer is done. Thank you.
Member Ferrier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. I'm going to ask Steve's question in a slightly different way, which is legalization of cannabis was pushed forward by the federal government and the province. We had a vote whether or not to opt in or not opt out, or which essentially is opting into retail shops. We haven't had any retail shop applications as of this time. I guess my question is, we did receive funding based on opting in for bylaw and other things, and I know a lot of it's been directed to policy, as you said. Have you seen a significant increase since legalization of bylaw enforcement around cannabis, in terms of people smoking it publicly and that sort of thing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've been tracking complaints for cannabis usage on our properties, and we've received no complaints whatsoever. Most of the complaints that we're getting relate to tobacco use on our properties. I'm not too sure about if any other jurisdictions have had issues with it, but there's certainly been no major issues in the county of Brant with respect to consumption in the public.
You can't get a contact high from tobacco, so that makes sense, yeah, thank you.
Member Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quickly, I was surprised when I read this that how little control the municipality has. We can't control it through zoning bylaws, interim control bys, or site plan control. But I'm a little bit confused because it says that, then the next staff says staff will need to make amendments to zoning bylaw 6116. So, and that would be through a housekeeping amendment. So that's okay if we make the controls through that? And can you kind of walk me through it? Because like I said, I'm a little bit confused because you want to control it through that zoning bylaw, but in the previous sentence it said we cannot control it. And then I got one more question, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, you're correct in stating that municipalities under Section 42 of the Cannabis Licensing Act specifically states that municipalities cannot enact land use controls under Sections